You won't believe how quickly things spiraled out of control in my quiet neighborhood. It all started when the HOA's Karen, the one everyone tried to avoid, decided to take things way too far. But this wasn't just about some petty dispute. Over lawn decorations or parking rules, it became personal in a way none of us expected. Her son, who happened to be a cop, showed up at my doorstep with orders to arrest my wife. Imagine the shock, the fear, and confusion we felt in that moment. How did a simple disagreement turn into something so serious? That's exactly what I want to share with you today. This story isn't just about an overbearing HOA or a power trip. It's about the ripple effects when people abuse their positions and how a family's actions can impact lives in ways you never see coming. My wife, someone you'd never expect to be targeted like this, suddenly found herself caught in a nightmare she didn't deserve. Meanwhile, the Karen we all knew complaining about noise or mailboxes showed a side nobody saw coming, using her son's badge and influence in ways that shocked the entire neighborhood. But here's the twist that's hard to believe. After all the chaos, the Karen's son ended up losing not only his badge, but also a scholarship he had worked hard to earn. How did this happen? What led to such a dramatic fall from grace? And what does this mean for my wife, our family, and the neighborhood as a whole? The answers aren't simple, and the story is far from over. Stay with me, because the next part will reveal how justice caught up in the most unexpected way. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Before all of this happened, life in our neighborhood seemed pretty normal. We all followed the HOA rules. And for the most part, everyone got along. But Karen, the HOA president's wife, was always a bit different. She had a way of making small issues feel huge, turning minor complaints into neighborhood drama. I thought it was just her personality, a bit controlling and nosy. But I never expected how far she'd take it. Her son was a local cop, known for being ambitious and proud of his badge. Everyone said he had a bright future ahead, with a scholarship to a well-known academy lined up. At first, I figured the two of them were just trying to protect their property and reputation like any other family might. But when tensions between us started to rise over a simple fence dispute, things changed fast. Karen started complaining more aggressively, and her son began getting involved in ways that felt uncomfortable, like mixing family drama with his professional role. The night the cop showed up at our door, my wife was home alone. She didn't even know what was happening at first. One moment, she was minding her own business. The next, she was being told she was under arrest. The charges were unclear, and it felt like a power move meant to intimidate us, not to enforce any real law. It shook our entire family and the neighborhood. People started whispering, wondering if this was abuse of power or if something else was going on behind the scenes. What's even more surprising is what came next. Reports about the cop's behavior and how he handled the situation began to surface. Suddenly, the scholarship he had been so proud of was in jeopardy. But the full story, that's still unfolding, and it's a lot more complicated than it seems. There's more to Karen's family and their influence than we first thought, and it's only getting messier. The next chapters will reveal just how deep this conflict runs. As the situation unfolded, it became clear this wasn't just about one family feud or a strict HOA rule gone wrong. The deeper I dug, the more tangled the web became. Karen's son, wearing his badge, wasn't just acting on impulse. There were layers of pressure and expectations I hadn't seen before. Friends and neighbors started sharing their own stories, bits and pieces that painted a picture of someone struggling to balance authority and family loyalty. Some said he was trying too hard to prove himself, while others whispered about a harsher side no one really knew. Meanwhile, my wife had to deal not only with the shock of the arrest, but also the social fallout. Friends who once supported us began to question what really happened, caught between rumors and the truth. The HOA meetings grew tense, with some residents siding with Karen, convinced that rules must be enforced no matter what. Others were quietly worried, sensing the lines between personal vendettas and legal power were blurring dangerously. This neighborhood drama quickly escalated beyond yard signs and parking spaces into something much bigger. On another front, the scholarship Karen's son had was under review. The institution launched an investigation into his conduct, and suddenly the future he had planned so carefully was at risk. How could someone so promising end up in such a mess? What role did his mother's influence play in all this? People started questioning if favoritism or pressure had pushed him into decisions he now regretted. The tension was palpable not just between families, but within the community and even within the son himself. Through it all, I kept asking, what really sparked this clash? Was it just a fight over HOA rules, or were deeper resentments boiling? Under the surface, as the drama unfolds, one thing is clear. This story isn't just about a neighborhood dispute. It's about power, pride, and the dangerous line between authority and abuse. And the fallout. It's far from over. Tensions in the neighborhood reached a boiling point as whispers turned into heated arguments and the lines between friend and foe blurred. Every HOA meeting became a battleground, with residents taking sides, some defending Karen and her son's actions, others demanding answers and accountability. My wife and I felt the weight of this conflict every day, like living under a storm cloud that could break at any moment. The sense of injustice hung heavy, and it seemed no one could find common ground. Meanwhile, Karen's son was under more scrutiny than ever. The investigation into his conduct was gaining momentum, and rumors swirled about the details, whether his badge had been used unfairly, or if personal vendettas influenced his decisions. The scholarship he had worked so hard for was now on the line, casting doubt on his future and reputation. For someone who once seemed destined for success, the fall was shocking and swift. But beneath the surface, there was something more complicated: a young man torn between family loyalty and want, and the consequences of his actions. The community was watching closely, waiting for what would come next. Would the HOA crack down on Karen's aggressive behavior, or would the power she wielded protect her? How would the police department respond to one of their own being under investigation? And what about my wife's would she'll finally get the justice she deserved after being wrongfully targeted? With emotions running high, the stage was set for a confrontation that no one wanted but everyone expected. The neighborhood's fragile peace was shattered, and the fallout was about to reach its peak. As secrets came to light and loyalties were tested, the question remained: who would come out on top, and who would pay the price? The answers were just around the corner, but the tension was unbearable. The climax was fast approaching, and nobody could predict how it would all end. Just when it seemed like the tension couldn't get any worse, a new twist shook everything to its core. Out of nowhere, evidence surfaced, suggesting that Karen's son might have been involved in something far more serious behind the scenes, something that no one expected in our quiet neighborhood. Whispers began about questionable behavior during his time on the force, and some residents claimed they had seen things that didn't add up. Suddenly, the investigation wasn't just about one isolated incident. It was expanding into a much bigger picture of misconduct and possible cover-ups. This revelation threw the whole community into chaos. People who had once defended Karen's family started to pull back, unsure where the truth really lay. The HOA meetings became more than just disputes over rules. They turned into heated debates about justice, accountability, and trust. My wife and I found ourselves in the eye of a storm that felt impossible to escape. The man who had come to arrest her was now under scrutiny for things we never imagined. And the scholarship he lost was just the beginning of his troubles. At the same time, Karen's grip on the neighborhood seemed to falter. Some neighbors began questioning how much influence she really had and whether her aggressive tactics had finally backfired. Rumors of alliances breaking apart and hidden grudges coming to light added fuel to the fire. It was clear that this wasn't just a family conflict anymore. It was a community unraveling under pressure. As the stakes rose higher, everyone was waiting for the next move. Would Karen's family manage to hold on to their power, or would this new scandal be the tipping point? And what would happen to my wife caught in the middle of it all? The tension was at its peak, and the story was far from over. The next moments could change everything, but which way it would go, nobody knew yet. The breaking point came on a chilly evening when the entire neighborhood gathered for what was supposed to be a routine HOA meeting. Instead, it turned into a showdown that no one saw coming. Karen showed up, confident as ever, but this time she faced a crowd no longer willing to back down. Evidence against her son had been made public, official reports revealing misuse of authority, false statements, and an internal investigation confirming misconduct. The scholarship was officially revoked, and he had been stripped of his badge. The power they once held was crumbling right before everyone's eyes. But just as the tension reached its peak, a new voice cut through the room. It was Karen's son, who, in a surprising turn, admitted to his mistakes openly. He explained how the pressure from his mother and his own ambitions clouded his judgment. His confession stunned everyone, including Karen herself. There was a raw honesty in his words that shifted the energy in the room. No more hiding. No more lies, with the truth out in the open. The HOA voted to remove Karen from her leadership position and a call for fairer, more transparent rules began to spread through the community. My wife was cleared of all charges, her name finally restored. The neighborhood started to heal, but the scars remained a reminder of how easily power can be abused and how important it is to stand up for what's right. Just when it seemed like the story had reached its end, one last surprise emerged. A confidential letter surfaced, revealing that someone else in the HOA had been quietly manipulating the situation all along, someone no one had suspected. This new twist left everyone wondering if the conflict was truly over or if the real battle was just beginning. The neighborhood would never be the same. And neither would we. After the shocking confession and the HOA's decision to remove Karen from her leadership role, a sense of relief slowly settled over the neighborhood. It wasn't an instant fix there. It was a lot to rebuild after the damage done, but for the first time in months, people began to believe things could get better. My wife's name was cleared, and she could finally move past the nightmare of being wrongfully accused. That alone felt like a huge victory, not just for us, but for anyone who had felt powerless in the face of unfair authority. The fallout from Karen's son losing his badge and scholarship was hard but necessary. It was a reminder that no one is above the rules and that integrity matters more than connections or privilege. Watching him admit his mistakes publicly was unexpected, but it showed that sometimes facing the truth is the first step toward redemption. Whether he would rebuild his life remains to be seen, but at least the community saw a human side behind the badge. As for the surprise revelation about someone else pulling strings behind the scenes, it left a lot of people thinking. It was clear that this conflict wasn't just about one family or a single incident. Power dynamics in the neighborhood were more complicated than we thought. But instead of feeling defeated, this sparked conversations about transparency and fairness in the HOA going forward. Neighbors started coming together to make sure everyone's voice could be heard, and to prevent history from repeating itself. In the end, this story was more than just a fight between neighbors. It was a lesson about standing up against abuse, the importance of community, and the courage it takes to seek justice. Though the scars remain, the neighborhood is healing, and we're stronger because of it. And while the future is uncertain, one thing's clear: no one should ever use power to silence others.